All right, let's bring in Kevin Sawyer. Kev, great to have you back on the program. Let's just say a little different mood around the peg after these two games in St. Louis. Someone in chat kind of said it. The Blues are leading the series 2-2. It is 2-2, but after these games, it sort of feels like all the momentum has shifted to St. Louis.
The momentum clearly in the hands of St. Louis, and not only did they hold serve on home ice, but I mean those were statement wins. And if I'm St. Louis looking at this saying, okay, above and beyond the wins, if there's any kind of underlying victories, they got those two, and that is, can we find a way to break down this defensive juggernaut of a team? They did. And they did it in different ways. We'll get to that maybe in a little bit here. And then can we find a way to maybe get into the head of the Vezina caliber goaltender? It's Binnington against Hellebuyck. Binnington's winning the head-to-head battle, simply put. And that's all due respect to Connor. He's an outstanding goaltender and has been, but it's a what have you done for me lately? So going back into Winnipeg, you get the sense there's some doubt. Now, in saying that, this team has been through a lot of ups and downs. They've been through adversity with injuries or just, different style throughout the course of the regular season. And I think that they've earned the respect and the trust from the fan base and from all of us that this team has what it takes to recalibrate here and get their balance back. But there's no doubt they've been knocked off balance here with those two games in St. Louis.
Kev, game 3 was bad. I mean, and it got away from them big time. And I kind of thought on Friday that, if you were going to lose game 3, maybe getting your butt kicked the way that they did might actually be the better of two options than maybe being like one goal away in double overtime from being up 3-0 and then having to go back at it. And to their credit, I thought the first period was pretty good. The first 2 minutes or so, I thought the Blues really came out, but the Jets managed to steal themselves. They got that goal. They certainly had the control of play. More of it was in the Blues' end. And then that late goal happened. And, I was just mentioning, let's not forget the same damn thing happened in game number 2. And how did they respond? Very well in the second period, although they didn't score. And then they got one and they locked it down and won game number 2. In your mind, what was different about the way the Jets handled, maybe not as much the first goal, but the second goal when things really got out of hand in that second half of the second period?
Yeah, that was where the game turned. And if you're going to be accurate and fair and call it what it is, it's a bad goal against. Some will say, that they were in the eyes of Hellebuyck, his eyes were taken away. No, they weren't. There's going to be traffic. You show me a goal or a shot to the net where there's not traffic, but there was minimal traffic and it evacuated. The shot attempt from Tanev was far enough away where Hellebuyck has eyes on that shot. And in the regular season, you've seen it, I've seen it, we've seen it. That save just simply gets made. And so I agree with you. I thought that Scott Arniel game planned properly coming into game number 4. You got thumped in game 3, you come back, you make the adjustments, and it was all about how can we control the neutral zone and take that heavy, hard forecheck away from the Blues. The Jets did that. It wasn't easy, and the Blues are not going to go away. They're not a type of a team where you can game plan and just make them disappear. They're going to push, but Arniel does a nice job countering with his game plan. And so you win the first period, you're tied after the first period 1-1, but the Jets go into the locker room saying, okay, we're back. Our style's working. We're controlling play. And then you come back out, push back from St. Louis, and that goal going in, I think, deflated them. That's a goal that normally gets saved. So when the Jets break down here and there, every team does, that goal gets made. That save gets made. It didn't get made, and now all of a sudden doubt crept in. And from there, I didn't like the third goal either, the Shen goal. I thought that was, man, I'm not quite sure how to describe that. I'm no goalie expert, but with Hellebuyck kind of, I'm not going to say a hope play, but he paddles down, you leave the top of the net open, and Shen's good enough where he's good and tight. So that second goal changed, I felt, belief and took confidence away from Winnipeg.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm with you, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the goals on Hellebuyck, and they kind of talk about the Schenn goal and not the first one. I'm of the opinion that the save he really needed to make was the Tucker goal. The Schenn goal, I mean, we can talk about what Hellebuyck did. Dude, Brady, the first body to make contact with Schenn in the Jets zone was his teammates mobbing him after he scored the goal. Like, he came in untouched, and in that play, to me, I kind of thought that Hellebuyck correctly put his stick out to prevent him from just waltzing right in front of the net with no problem, but he still has kind of had his stick out. I don't know what he's supposed to do other than hope that someone realizes that this guy's coming in all alone and hit him or stop him from doing that, and it just didn't happen. Like, to me, that was more of a collective letdown than just one on the goalie.
Totally agree. I totally agree. The only thing maybe that you and I might agree to disagree on is normally I think Hellebuyck just says, you know what, okay, you're coming in untouched, I'm going to beat you, versus kind of hope with the paddle and, hit the shot, save the shot. But I agree with you. That second goal against, that was the tough one because they still felt midway through the second period that it was a tug of war, but the Jets would say that we've owned a majority of the minutes played in this game so far. And now not only are we tied, but now we're down by a goal, and that building's a tough one to play in. What is it? 14 straight for St. Louis at home wins. So again, it was the I just don't think the Jets are used to those type of goals going in, particularly in big moments like that. This is new territory in some ways. So to be quite fair and to be quite honest, Binnington is outplaying Hellebuyck. I mean, that's obvious. Hellebuyck, Scott Arniel's going to protect his goaltender, Hustler. He is. And he should. But at the same time, the truth is the truth. And sometimes just looking right into the mirror and saying it sometimes pulls everybody to attention. He hasn't been good enough. Team hasn't been good enough, but I thought that they were pretty damn good in the first half of that game, game 4. I thought that it was Hellebuyck that needed to find a way to get his game back to the level where everybody talks about best goalie on the planet. He wasn't the best goalie on the planet in that game.
The words adjustments always gets thrown around a lot, in these series. Wow, you got to make an adjustment in between periods or adjustments in between games. And we've heard this said about St. Louis. I'm interested from your expert opinion what you have seen those adjustments to be, because I can tell you what the result has been. A series that we talked about, the key to the Jets winning the way they did in games 1 and 2, where they were the team that was controlling the blue paint, has been completely flipped on its side. And half the goals that have gone in on Hellebuyck have been screened, and Binnington is seemingly seeing everything. Like, what have the St. Louis Blues done in these 2 games that has flipped that massive, massive part of the competition in their favor?
Okay, good question. And here's what I see. When the Jets, and it's often, are at their best and they play to their identity, they are a gap team. The relationship from defense to forwards is tight, and it is 5 men with one mind. I say that often. So they are able to control teams through the neutral zone as they come back and teams try to attack them. Because the forwards track back so hard, the D can stay up, and they usually take speed away from other teams. They control the neutral zone, and now the Jets are fast. Now they're attacking. Now they're playing the game north of the red line. It's the St. Louis Blues that have found different ways to get through the neutral zone. Game 1, it was a ground and pound through the first 40 minutes, whether they were backing the Jets D off and carrying the puck in controlled entries, or chipping and getting on the body and ramming them through the end walls. It was working. Jets had a good third period, won that game. Maybe St. Louis deserved to win it. They didn't. That's fine. And then the Jets adjusted in the third period. Game number 2, I thought that the Blues found different ways, whether they're entering with control, chipping and getting on the body, or last game in the second period, Montgomery makes the right adjustment where, okay, by committee, we're not going to have a ton of speed through the neutral zone. They've adjusted. So now let's just chip it and smother. They're not even getting the big hits anymore off the forecheck like they were, but they're getting bodies to the puck below the hash marks. And then from there, they're just content to say, slow the game, force them to defend. The Jets are not comfortable and haven't been comfortable because they haven't had to do it. They haven't had to spend big minutes in their own zone typically against good teams. throughout the course of the regular season. Now St. Louis win a battle, low to high, shot from range. Hellebuyck's not making the saves that he's normally making from the point. So what I'm seeing is two really good coaches, and this is a chess match where Montgomery has found different ways control the neutral zone, and then his team are a bunch of hound dogs when it comes to just winning battles in the offensive zone and forcing the Jets to defend.
I have to it's hard to have this conversation without talking in the framework not just of this entire season but the last two playoffs. And the one similarity that we can look at the Vegas series, we can look at the Colorado series, is that much like yesterday's game, when it got going bad for Winnipeg, the game unraveled. These two series in the last two seasons unraveled after, a couple tough games, and they weren't able to get it back. Kevin, the more I think about it, this game on Wednesday night is maybe the biggest gut check that this group has ever had. They're not down 3-1 in this series. They're very much in this series. They have home ice. They're playing at home, something that they earned from their great regular season. But in a lot of ways, if they don't get back to where they were, this will maybe be the biggest lost opportunity considering what they accomplished this year and the way this series started. As someone that, has been in these locker rooms before, what do you make of them not practicing today, just doing an optional? I'm sure there'll be a practice tomorrow. And what needs to happen and what will be happening behind the scenes to sort of calm the team and then ramp it up and get ready to be at their best when they have to be on Wednesday night?
Yep. Man, that's a great observation. Last year, games 3 and 4 against Denver, Jets outscored 11-3. This year, games 3 and 4 against St. Louis, outscored 12-3. So it is similar, and it's a similar situation. And so we've talked about this through the regular season where pressure is real. How do you deal with it? There's a lot of pressure now, maybe more than ever, like you said. I look back to the game, I think it was a 5-2 loss against Utah. Man, I can't remember the date, but it was early March, I think, maybe late February. And Arniel, listen, I'm not saying that it's a good thing to embarrass or to call out your team in the media, but sometimes the truth is the truth. And sometimes just being simple and direct is effective. He called the effort embarrassing. And so what does the Winnipeg Jets club do? They go and win 11 straight games after that. Scott Arniel and that whole coaching staff from the ownership all the way down has built a winner. They have, and I have so much respect for what they've done. Easy for me to say, but what I would like to see, and as a player sometimes, say the truth, man. We haven't been good enough. Our goalie needs to be better. Say it, call us out. They want to be held accountable. That's the biggest shift here in the last 3 years where they weren't very good at that 3 years ago, pre-Rick Bowness. They didn't like it. Now it becomes a strength of theirs. We want to be held accountable. We want to be pushed to be better. They haven't been good enough. The goalie hasn't been good enough. Say it. Call them out, just like you did in Utah. And it is what it is. There's already pressure. That's not going to add more pressure. To me, that's just that calms me because it's the truth. And now all we got to do is deal with the truth. That's what I think. And maybe that's happening behind the scenes. I don't know. Day off today is the right thing. Rest. Everybody's got bruises. Tomorrow, it's got to be direct. It's got to be all business. I would like to see a little bit more. This is us. We need to be better. Our goaltender is the silver medal winning goaltender in this series so far. He needs to be better. We need to be better. Say it, do it.
We can talk a lot about goals that went in and, is it the goalie's fault or was it coverage? You're not winning series like this scoring one, or even two in most cases, although they did win. Certainly not when you're giving up 7.
Yep.
It has seemed like one of the adjustments that St. Louis did, if it was possible, was to ramp up the physicality on the Jets' top players. Scheifele in particular. I mean, just the first period alone, that montage that they showed of the hits that he'd taken, which was kind of funny. I mean, again, very Winnipeg perspective here on this, but when you see a bunch of the things that have been called in this series, and then you see that montage and realize nothing went back, you kind of wonder where some of the calls are, if some of the things that they are calling are going to be. But I think about Scheifele in particular and Morrissey. What are your thoughts on just how much abuse they're taking, and what can the Jets do? What can the coaching staff do to maybe have these guys less looking at what is about to hit them and more playing with the puck and doing things that have made them successful?
Well, both factor in, and I think Tom Wilson said yesterday after he had a game-changing hit in that series against Montreal, everybody's hitting, everybody's getting hit. And if you're one of the better players, you're at the top of that list. So what you can't do is avoid contact. That's coming. And it's part of the game plan. And I said this going in, where the Jets better get used to this, because this is what, if I was a coach, the game plan would be, okay, there's skill. And Ehlers isn't in the lineup, but you look at Kyle Connor, you look at Cole Perfetti, Vladdy Nemestikov in the top 6. A lot of their skill isn't very big. Let's ram them. And Scheifele's a bigger man, but that's coming. I look back to, you remember back in the Stanley Cup final 2023, Jack Eichel takes that hit from Matthew Tkachuk. It was, man,
Yeah.
Nobody thought he was coming back for the rest of the year, let alone in that game. That was devastating. He comes back, gets the second point of that game after that hit, and he goes on 5 more points in the next 3 games to win the Stanley Cup. It was, so when you're the best player, you're going to get targeted. You have to find a way to, okay, absorb that, play through it, and then give it right back. But some of this also goes to, where's the game being played? And if you're always on your heels, always going back to get the puck, you're going to get hit more. And that's where the Jets have to find a way to get through the neutral zone and get heading northward so they can be more physical. But that if you want to be a game changer, and Mark Scheifele has been and can be a game changer, then you have to change games. You have to change a game. And playoffs, you show me one team that has won a Stanley Cup without bruises, bones broken, you're getting hit, you're hitting. You have to find a way to be comfortable in that, take it and give it. I didn't think that Scheif did enough of that in the last 2 games, particularly in game number 4. He needs to get back to driving to the net, being physical in his own way, dictating versus kind of reacting and always absorbing it.
Kevin Sawyer's with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. 2-2 is the series, heading back to the Peg for game number 5, Wednesday night, late night, Canada Life Center. Kevin, it goes without saying the Jets need more from players not playing on that top line. They've actually had a couple goals from the fourth line that's played very limited minutes. What's not happening with line 2 and line 3 right now? And do you think the coaches might shake things up on those lines as we go into game 5?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. The second line with Vladdy, man, losing Nick was devastating. I mean, that simply put, I mean, he added such an element to that line where he backed defense off. He was, that line would gain easy access. And I say easy, most of the time it was, because the respect that Nikolai Ehlers commanded, and those other 2, Perfetti and Nemestikov, they played off of each other so well. And that's not a slight on Niederreiter or anybody else, but that line had so much chemistry. They went through so much to get to the level they were at. So number 1, that line just simply hasn't been the same without Nikolai Ehlers. Now you can talk about the lack of goal scoring from Vladdy Nemestikov. When Nick's on that line, he doesn't have to score because he does enough things without the puck or to get the puck into his hands. That hasn't happened. And for it's hard for me to understand or to even describe how Adam Lowry's line has been regarded as the best third line in the National Hockey League, maybe for the last 2 years. They're not anymore. And, some of it was, some mediocre play from Nino Niederreiter at times. I know he's elevated. Mason Appleton was playing hurt. His game has been mediocre. Adam's game has been solid right throughout, but that is the identity line, has been the identity line. And you talk about fourth line goals, that would bring a lot for this group right now if they can get the Lowry line to start getting on the forecheck, chipping in some playoff style goals. They haven't had enough of that.
Kevin, we get to Canada Life Center and drop the puck on Monday. What will you be looking for, and how crucial is a good start for the Winnipeg Jets in the Game 5?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think this is the time of year to change anything as far as who they are, the identity in which they play with. They have to be able to. Scott Arniel is going to come back with a game plan. I think it's going to look a lot like period 1 in game 4. I do. I think that's the recipe where he put forth a plan to kind of take the speed, like I talked about earlier, from St. Louis. But they have to be able to stick with that for 60 minutes and be patient in a game where it's not going to be easy. It's going to probably be a tight scoring game if the Jets are on. And that was their strength through the regular season, where they would just outweight teams and they would just stick to their game plan longer and they would win those games. So for me, you have to be comfortable in a low scoring, a tight game, and don't try to win it in a single period. When something goes bad, second goal against that Hellebuyck lets in game number 4, you have to continue to stick with your plan. You can't unravel. So patience and structure, more of what was made this team the President's Trophy winning team in the playoffs. Easier said than done. St. Louis, man, that's a good hockey team, and they have bought into a plan themselves. The Jets are the better team here. The Jets have the better goalie, in my opinion. They just need to be the better team. Hellebuyck needs to be the better goalie. That hasn't happened for long enough stretches of time. Patient, hardworking identity, game 5.
It goes without saying that all eyes are going to be on Hellebuyck. I know there's a couple people that have suggested starting Comrie, as if. But outside of Connor Hellebuyck, with everything that comes on with being who he is and their position in this season, who are the players that you think Scott Arniel will be leaning on, and who will you be looking at to show that this team is ready to bounce back and to bring that pushback that Bones talked about 2 years ago after that Vegas series?
Yeah, so I think we touched on it here a little bit. I think that you need your best players to be your best players. Scott Arniel said that after game number 4. Robert Thomas and that line is outperforming the Jets' top line. So I said it. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. Mark Scheifele is the most important player for success for this team. He is above Connor Hellebuyck. They need Helly to be better, no doubt. Everybody knows that. I think Scheif has to drive again and get that style of game that we saw in the third period, game 1, and all of game 2 back. But in saying that, you look at Josh Morrissey, you look at Dylan Sandberg, you look at Adam Lowry. This team hasn't won because of any one player. It hasn't won just because of their power play or just because Connor Hellebuyck. It has been that conglomeration of the sum of their parts. And so who am I looking for? I'm looking for Mark Scheifele to lead up front. I'm looking for the team game to get back intact for 60 minutes. And Connor Hellebuyck has to be Connor Hellebuyck. That's why this team has won. And they won't win if they can't get back to that team mentality. No one player is going to be able to pull them through this. Before I go, though, I just want to say this one last thing on the Winnipeg Jets. They have earned the respect that they have earned respect here throughout the course of the regular season, and the playoffs is a different animal. And it's a what have you done for me lately? But Connor Hellebuyck is a confident man. This group is a confident group. They are tight, and they've built a culture here. I think it's important that people don't forget how this has been built over time. And this is when you need that locker room, that camaraderie, that sense of belief. It's easy to look at this saying, oh, it's all falling apart. But I think there's a lot of reasons to feel confident because this group has been through a lot in the last 3 years. It's time to show up or shut up. But they've done a lot to earn backing and trust because this has been an outstanding group over the course of 3 years. But you're right. This next game is probably the biggest game that they've played in a handful of years.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. And listen, if we want to look at recent history, let's think about earlier this season when the team was flying high and they went out and got whooped by Tampa and got crushed by Florida. And what happened? They came back. They had a couple days off in between games and played one of their best games of the season against the Florida Panthers, who are the defending Stanley Cup champs, got the win, and then, kind of took off from there. That's what they need to do. They have done it before. And I think everyone, certainly around these parts, are hoping that we are going to see that. And Kev, I said this to Remus. I don't think I mentioned this on the show today, but as down as people are of these two games, if we wanted the revenge tour, this is the reverse 2019 series where the road team won the first 5 games and then the home team finally won in game number 6. Well, now we can see the home team win the first 5 games and then the road team win number 6. Holding on to that one right now, although I have a feeling this one might take 7.
Listen, I don't want to take it too long, but it's interesting too, kind of serendipitous, because back in 2023, the Boston Bruins set a National Hockey League record with those 65 wins. The head coach, of course, they won the President's Trophy. Head coach, Jim Montgomery. And that team lost in 7 games to the Florida Panthers. So Scott Arniel has the opportunity to flip the script, right? The President's Trophy doesn't mean much right now, but he's facing a coach that's been through it in Jim Montgomery. You know that Scott Arniel, man, he's been through enough too. This game planning in this next game, if both teams are at their best, this is going to be a burner.
No, it will be great. And as you've said before, if you're exercising demons or ghosts, sometimes you got to stare them down straight in the eye. And that, to me, is game 5 for the Winnipeg Jets.
Agreed, totally.
Kev, have a safe trip out there. We'll look forward to catching you and Dan on TSN for the Worlds.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks so much for the time. There's Kevin Sawyer with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk.